The problem of writing for the Objectivist philosophy. Hello, subscribers and lurkers. Before we get into this rant, it is a rant, not a real essay, I would just like to update you on what is coming to this channel. The History of General Relativity video is just in the video editing process, and is nearly complete. That video will then be followed by a conclusion video, The History of Quantum. We are also rewriting and remaking all the videos in Spiral 1 of the Spiral Theory of Integration/Knowledge series, as well as creating Spiral 2. Even the remakes will have new information for those subscribers who have been with us since the beginning, so don't miss them just because they are remakes. Also, courses will be starting. It is my intention to put out these high school, college, university level courses for the coming fall term, which will start with a very ambitious, if I do say so myself, introduction, which will present the triple integration. Also, we now have merchandise at the existenceuniversity.com website, selling art, bumper stickers, mugs, t-shirts, and hoodies. There's a lot of action going on, things are revving up, and we are very excited to keep on providing you educational content. Thank you. And now, onto the rant. Every time I sit down to write anything, whether it be a course on physics, or an essay about morality, or neurology, or whatever, I find myself wanting to include a reductive proof all the way down to objective reality. Finding the reduction itself is not the issue. It is just that once the words leave my fingertips and sit on the screen, they become the most obvious facts in existence. What purpose is there in me making a video about the most obvious facts, when clearly everyone should be capable of seeing it, as long as they live in the same universe as me? All the other philosophical schools of thought leave the holder with those worldviews of a higher-than-thou attitude, such that a follower of David Hume walks the streets sneering at the general public, as he pretends he is better than other people, because he, unlike them, knows that nothing is true and no facts can be known, and causality is not real. Then he looks both ways to cross the street, just in case. But the philosophy of objectivism leaves you realizing that man has essentially not changed since the day he somehow evolved a rational faculty that could abstract and conceptualize percepts into units, which can either be physically measured or mentally evaluated. Objectivism makes you realize that knowledge must be acquired by effort, and that everyone is capable of this. They just need to want it. They need to have a value in being a part of reality to some degree. Unlike a follower of Hume or Kant or Wittgenstein, or whom else ever besides Aristotle or Ayn Rand, the objectivist philosophers know that what people perceive is not true or false, it just is, and that any illusions are mistakes we made in the relating of concepts. For example, just straight up stealing an example from Harry Binswanger, a personal hero of mine, but to whom I am far too terrified to talk to, we could say that when someone says to us, "That straw in the water is bent," we go, "No, it looks like what it looks like. This is not what bent even looks like. The straw does not even look bent. Only a bent straw looks like a bent straw. That is the appearance of a straw whose image has been refracted to a different location given the nature of light and water and the material half submerged in that water. To say that something appears like something else, therefore maybe everything only appears like it is, but in reality actually it is different. To say that you are comparing this stuff in front of your eyes with the real-life version of them outside the matrix, so they both still exist. And you can only really say that if you have the ability to step outside of both of these realities and judge them perceptually. To say that without that ability, which you do not have, amounts to madness. To say that what you are seeing is all an illusion, and yet you have never seen what is real to make such comparisons to, it is meaningless. And this is the major problem. I can tell you that existence exists, that you are conscious, that you have an identity which allows you to identify other identities of other objects, that you use your senses to take in sensations which are converted into percepts automatically and automatically retained in the brain for future interactions with that object. That you need to focus to learn and to be out of focus while in class is a great way to make misintegrations, as you are just letting random information fall into whatever places they might not conceptually belong to. I can tell you that you as a baby have a certain neurology, which has a certain physics to it that allows for everything you do, and that you mentally form and use concepts in order to further understand the world you live in, to gain more advanced and higher level conceptual things and achievements. I can tell you all of this information, and every single regular Joe on the street will just for the most part shrug and partly agree. Alternatively, I have the philosophers of the other schools to consider, so as to shut them down before they can even start. But the issue is with them that they are all nuts. A human being wakes up, starts his day, opens YouTube, watches a video about objective reality, and comments that he, personally, does not believe that he exists, and that he would like to convince you that you also do not exist. Who is doing the convincing, and who is to be convinced? Surely not real people, so why do you need to personally object to the notion of being a type of personal object? They comment, "Allow me to use logic, math, and physics to prove reality doesn't exist." Note here that I wrote this script a few days ago, and upon preparing to read it out to you, I received this message. At Existence University, they type, "What you are saying is that my argument is absurd," which it is. Logic has many laws. One of them is the law of non-contradiction. What proof do you have of this law? Non-contradiction cannot be seen, perceived, or measured. We presuppose non-contradiction. We assume non-contradiction. We do not prove it. We do not actually know because we cannot know. Without non-contradiction, everything falls apart. So this is now part of the thing we don't/can't know. How many things do we not know? A limited number of things or an unlimited number of things? We do not know, and it could be a pretty big problem. If infinities exist, absurdities exist. Everything, including nothing, exists. If infinities don't exist, you can now guess the proportion of how much things you don't know. Take everything that you know and add it to it. Do you add 10% of what you know? 20%? 1,000,000%? You don't know. You are taking a guess. Add it to the list of things you don't know. How does the human brain perceive infinity? It doesn't. A thing may be so big that you perceive it as infinity, while it is in fact finite. However much that is, this could be how much you don't know, or any other single increment below that. If that number was 1, it would look something like 1, 0.1, 0.01, ... 0.00000001... ... period. That's a lot of things you don't know and could also be infinite. You wouldn't be able to tell a difference. It is important to recognize when you don't/can't know. Is my existence real? As a human, I am not equipped to answer this question. What? What is the color of circles? As a human, I am not equipped to answer this question. I cannot see the color of shapes. I cannot see if something is real or not. Sorry. Okay. Socrates said something like, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." So Socrates said something like, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." I don't know is unironically the only valid answer to all the philosophical questions that touch on this fundamental problem. You claim that you know, that you can tell what is truly real and what is not. If you were right, you would become an absurdity and prove the existence of infinities. Your daily life doesn't change from knowing that, but it could change. Wait. Your daily life doesn't change from knowing that, but it could change your perspective on spiritual. Your daily life doesn't change from knowing that, but it could change your perspective on spiritual and scientific doctrines. The scientific method is goated, but you should gamble all your money, because every spin you don't take is a million you don't make. It's beautiful. Okay, back to the script. You cannot remove human beings or objects from reality and then speculate on their metaphysical and epistemological natures from that vacuum. Ibn Sina's floating man and Descartes' demon being famous examples of thought experiments where a man was ripped out of his place in the evolutionary tree that is his family genealogy, ripped from the planet that he gained all his knowledge on, ripped from all the experiences that made him physically and mentally grow into a fully grown, philosophical thinking man, and placed him in a vacuum of nothingness, and then speculated on what he would feel or think. It is asinine to the fullest. You cannot remove the contextual nature of a thing in the universe, rip it away from all of its identities, and then attempt to think about it. Think about what? You cannot abstract by subtraction. Units are abstracted from the object. The square does not need to be made of literal lineness or cornerness. It is just a square, say, formed by carving out a path in the sand, and the human mind is finding what are essentially real things, lines, but not things which exist by themselves. Lines are always lines on or of something. So in that manner, you cannot take lines away from a square. That's not a real thing that can be removed from shapes, and still have us talk about shapes. You can, however, due to high-level abstractions, talk about removing lines from shapes, but you cannot continue to call the new concept a shape. Whatever it is you are now talking about must include in its nature that it stands for shapes and non-shapes, aka we are now conceptualizing properties. The closest thing one can say about an object, like a box, say, when one is talking about, quote, what are things about this box that are like the lines of the squares of that box, but not the lines? Like, what is it that we would be talking about if we removed the lineness of a box? The only real answer is that we are talking abstractly about what it would mean to remove a property from a substance, and the only true answer is that it would no longer be that substance. And all you have left to talk about are the other properties you abstracted out before abstracting out the box itself, aka the colors and textures and whatnot of the box. This is the issue with writing objectivist philosophy. You are either explaining the most obvious facts of reality to people that already know that, but don't really want to think about it, or you are explaining why it is not necessary or not okay to introduce magic to reality, nor to pretend that parts of reality don't exist. The fact that it is a philosophy that is actually correct, in that it actually deals with reality, means that the best philosophical insights might be new to 99% of people, but you still feel almost stupid for saying it because of how obvious it is in hindsight. In a simple nutshell, its pattern goes like this. We all start implicitly with 1 + 1 = 2. And later, it becomes explicit, and people write it down and show that 1 + 1 = 2. And then we take a Kantian philosophy class and get some weird half-argument as to why 1 + 1 could equal 3. And the majority of the population just believes that, because that is a famous dude that said it, so it must be true. Then you come by and say, hey guys, check out this philosophy. It's pretty new and different. It says 1 + 1 is 2, and all of the normal people cut you off and say, yeah, well, how is that new? And you have to explain that, well, that's not the new part, but the fact that it's true brings us to the new part. But by that time, normal people have checked out of the conversation. And all you have are the Kantians going like, only if you're a baby. We philosophers know that 1 + 1 can equal 3, and therefore, to say otherwise means that you're not a philosopher. And therefore, we don't have to address your criticisms, nor read anything that you have to say. The upside to writing objectivist philosophy is that it is really easy to be correct, and it makes your life better as opposed to making you invent a magical fantasy land that drives you mad over time. The downside to that is that you are driven mad over time as the rest of the world loses their minds and you become one of the last remaining humans on the planet.